On October 10, 2019, U.S. police officers visited Joseph Allege's home for the first time. He invited them inside and explained that 2 days earlier, on October 8th, around 11 to dawn or 11:30 p.m., he had gone to bed with his wife and daughter as usual. But the next morning when he woke up, Joseph realized that his wife had vanished without any explanation. Her wallet, clothes, and wedding ring were all left behind on the table, making things more difficult. Joseph claimed he didn't know the password to his wife's phone, so he couldn't check who she had last been in contact with. At the time Joseph's wife, Ji Ming-chi, went missing, she was seen by those around her as not only a successful young engineer, but also a kind wife and a capable young mother to their one-year-old daughter. Her posts on Facebook and Instagram reflected just how proud and genuinely happy she was with her little family. However, when the police visited their home that day, they uncovered a shocking truth. There had already been cracks in the relationship between Joseph and Ji Ming-chi. During his interview with the police, Joseph revealed something he had long kept secret not long before he had accidentally discovered that his wife was romantically involved with a Chinese man she had met online. Her sudden disappearance combined with this secret relationship led the police to raise a serious question. Could it be that after spending time messaging this man, Ji Ming-chi had made the decision to return to her home country and start a new life with her lover? Refusing to let things remain as mere speculation, without solid evidence, the police immediately began checking taxi services, airline tickets, and any other forms of transportation or documents that might be connected to Ji Ming-chi. Yet strangely, after many hours of searching, they found no trace of her at all. So where did Ji Ming-chi really go? Ji Ming-chi was born in 1991 in Xi'an, Shanxi Province, China, and grew up in an ordinary working-class family. Her parents always encouraged her to strive for a better life and to become a successful person in the future. As they had hoped, Ji Ming-chi turned out to be intelligent and bright, consistently excelling in her studies from a young age. During the National College Entrance Exam, she achieved an impressive score and was admitted to the prestigious East China University of Science and Technology. Even after entering university, she continued to push herself, maintaining a rigorous study routine. Her dedication paid off. She remained among the top of her class and received academic scholarships every year. And then in her final year of university, as if everything had been leading to this moment, Ji Ming-chi was awarded one of the highly coveted scholarships to pursue her studies abroad at the University of Missouri in Columbia, United States. In 2014, Ji Ming-chi earned her master's degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering. After graduating, she decided to stay in the United States to pursue a brighter future. She began her first job at a biomedical materials company where she was assigned an important role and became the lead on a trial project. It was also during this time, back in 2015, that she met her future husband, Joseph, who was 5 years younger than her and had just started his internship under Ji Ming-chi's guidance. While working together in the lab, the two collaborated seamlessly, often coming up with remarkably similar ideas. They began to admire and feel attracted to each other, despite their cultural differences, age gap, and contrasting appearances. Joseph and Ji Ming-chi gradually fell in love. In 2016, they went on their first date. Time flew by, and after dating for a year and a half, a memorable event took place. On September 8, 2010, while they were taking a walk in the park, Joseph proposed to Ji Ming-chi. He expressed his love and got down on one knee on a hard rock, though his heart had already melted with happiness. Looking at the radiant smile of the petite girl in front of him, Joseph Allege believed he could protect and love her for the rest of his life. On September 22, 2017, just half a month after the memorable proposal at Rockbridge Memorial Park, Joseph and Ji Ming-chi got married in February 2018. 6 months after the wedding, Ji Ming-chi became pregnant. Upon learning that his wife was expecting, Joseph was overjoyed. Ji Ming-chi also decided to resign from her job to prepare for motherhood. During her pregnancy, Ji Ming-chi often shared photos of her happy family on social media, a loving home, a baby on the way, and a fulfilling life waiting ahead for the young couple. So why would she choose to leave all that behind and start a secret relationship behind Joseph's back? What really happened? On October 9th, 2019, Ji Mengxi's mother suddenly lost contact with her daughter. Up until then, she would video call her every day to check in on her and her grandchild. Concerned, she sent messages and tried calling Joseph, but received no response. After thinking it over, Ji Mengxi's mother remembered that her daughter had a close Chinese friend who lived nearby. She quickly found the friend's number and sent a message asking her to visit the couple's home to see what was going on. At 9 a.m. the next morning, October 10, 2019, Ji Mengxi's friend arrived at the home of Mengxi and Joseph. After knocking on the door and being greeted by Joseph, she started a video call with Mengxi's parents so they could check in. At that moment, Joseph was home. Speaking to his mother-in-law over the phone, he said, "When I woke up in the morning, Mengxi was gone," thinking the couple had simply argued. Mengxi's mother urged Joseph to go look for his wife. That was when Joseph was forced to confront the truth: his wife was missing. He then sent out messages to friends and family, saying Mengxi has been missing for a few days. If you have any information about her, please contact me or notify the police. When friends reached out to ask about the situation, Joseph told them that he and Mengxi hadn't been fighting. He explained that for the past few months, Mengxi had seemed distant and uninterested in him, and instead had been talking and getting close to another man. Suspicious signs began to emerge. Day after day, none of Mengxi's family members or friends could reach her. Since her disappearance, there had been no activity whatsoever on her social media accounts. Eventually, Joseph was forced to report his wife's disappearance to the police. However, one strange detail that puzzled everyone was the fact that Joseph didn't call 911 for immediate help. Instead, he contacted the non-emergency line, 311. On October 15, 2019, police brought Joseph in for questioning. Investigators quickly grew suspicious of his story, especially after hearing his account of the moment he discovered Mengxi was missing. Instead of immediately reporting her disappearance or frantically searching for her, Joseph calmly took his daughter out for a drive for 2 days straight. When asked why, Joseph explained, "When I woke up and saw my wife was gone, I just assumed she had gone somewhere. So I took her car, put our 1-year-old daughter in the back seat, and went out exploring trails, looking for new hiking paths we had planned to check out together." The investigator then asked Joseph, "You locked up the house and took the car for hours. Did it not occur to you that if your wife came back without her phone or car keys, she'd be in trouble?" Joseph hesitated for a moment, then simply replied, "I don't know." Sensing he might be falling under suspicion, and as a gesture of cooperation, Joseph agreed to give police access to his wife's phone. After the interrogation, police began to suspect that a crime may have been committed. But at that point, they had no solid evidence: no blood, no murder weapon, no witnesses, and most critically, no body. Without any of these, it was impossible to determine what had actually happened. So the question remained, were Joseph's suspicious behaviors truly connected to Ji Mengxi's disappearance? The theory that Ji Mengxi had simply run away from home was soon dismissed. Amid the lingering uncertainties, there was one thing investigators could be sure of: Mengxi would never have left on her own. First, when police unlocked her phone, they found messages showing that she had been in contact with several people shortly before her disappearance. Yet none of them suggested she was planning to leave. Second, her parents firmly believed that ever since her daughter was born, the child had become Mengxi's top priority. It was unthinkable that she would abandon her third. This was a woman who willingly paused her career to focus on motherhood. Someone who consistently posted photos of her daughter from pregnancy through infancy, smiling with genuine pride and love. By all accounts, Mengxi was a devoted, affectionate mother. There was simply no reason for her to walk away from her baby girl, especially when she had just turned 1. On October 15, 2019, during an interview with CBS affiliate KRCG Radio, Joseph told reporters that he wanted his wife to come home safely, that both he and their daughter loved Mengxi very much. However, once again, Joseph subtly implied that Mengxi might have run off with another man by saying, "I just hope that Mengxi is at least with someone who cares about her, who's keeping her safe." But on that very same day, police uncovered something critical on Mengxi's phone: a total of 12 secret audio recordings amounting to 10 hours capturing intense arguments between Joseph and Mengxi. In most of the recordings, Joseph was heard repeatedly expressing that he wanted a divorce. He didn't want to feel tied down, and he explicitly stated that he didn't want to pay alimony. In one particularly chilling recording, Joseph threatened her directly, saying, "If you piss me off, I'll beat you to death." Joseph's words revealed a disturbing sense of satisfaction toward the hardships that had taken root early in their marriage. In reality, things had already begun to deteriorate during Mengxi's pregnancy. The couple lived in a small rented apartment, and their main source of income came from Mengxi's savings, which she had accumulated during her few years of working after graduation. Joseph at the time was only a third-year college student. He had no stable income and could only earn a small amount through part-time jobs. Mengxi, ever frugal and responsible, also took on additional work, translating documents online at night just to help support the household. On October 3, 2018, Mengxi gave birth to a beautiful baby girl whom she lovingly named Anna. One would hope that the arrival of this tiny angel would bring renewed strength and unity to the couple. But not long after trouble began to surface, Joseph and Mengxi started arguing frequently. Mengxi's parents traveled all the way from China to help take care of their granddaughter, hoping to ease the burden. However, their presence only added more tension between the young couple. Eventually, her parents returned to China, deciding to support their daughter from afar. Then nearly a year later, on October 9, 2019, Mengxi disappeared. On October 18, 2019, while the investigation was still in full swing, the Columbia Police Department received an email from someone claiming that 8 months earlier, Mengxi had confided in them about Joseph's abusive behavior toward their child. According to Mengxi, she had discovered bruises on Anna's buttocks and suspected Joseph of abuse. At the time, Joseph promised it would never happen again, which led Mengxi to drop the matter quietly. This claim wasn't baseless. Investigators had indeed found photos on Mengxi's iPad documenting injuries on baby Anna's body. 1 week later, Joseph was arrested on charges of child abuse. His family was unable to post the $500,000 bail, so he remained in custody without release. In response to the accusation, Joseph explained, "At the time, Anna was crying too loudly. I just wanted her to stop. So I pinched her a few times. Maybe I used a little too much force." On October 25, 2019, after gathering sufficient evidence, police suspected that Ji Mengxi had most likely been murdered, and their prime suspect was Joseph. At that time, Joseph was already being held in jail on charges of child abuse. He was now officially placed under arrest again as the Columbia Police Department announced they were launching a criminal investigation into Ji Mengxi's disappearance. On October 29, 2019, police searched the apartment shared by Joseph and Ji Mengxi and discovered Joseph's journal. In it, he wrote about his growing frustration with his wife, along with details on how to handle police interrogations. Most critically, investigators also found a pair of muddy boots with various types of leaves stuck to them. By analyzing Joseph's location data from after Mengxi's disappearance, investigators traced his movements through several wooded areas across 3 cities, and notably he had stopped at the banks of the Lamine River for over 40 minutes. His travel speed suggested he had used a car. When questioned, Joseph claimed he had been searching for his wife in the forests, but made no mention of stopping at the Lamine River. Suspecting that Joseph may have dumped Ji Mengxi's body in the Lamine River, police launched a major search operation, hoping to uncover any trace of her. This marked the first of many searches conducted at the site involving dive teams and K-9 units. However, nothing was found. On October 30, 2019, Joseph's mother filed a petition for custody of Anna. Just a few days later, Ji Mengxi's parents also submitted a request for custody of their granddaughter. In the end, a custody agreement was reached. The child would spend her summers with her maternal grandparents in China and live with her paternal grandparents in the United States for the rest of the year. On February 19, 2020, Joseph was officially charged with murder, although Ji Mengxi's body had not yet been found. Prosecutor Dan Knight was convinced that Joseph was involved in his wife's disappearance. Knight and his team began preparing for trial. On February 22, 2020, after months of searching for Ji Mengxi, authorities still had no leads on her whereabouts. That day, Ji Mengxi's mother attended a memorial service held at the Lamine River to honor her lost daughter. Just when everything seemed to have reached a dead end, on March 25, 2021, 17 months after Ji Mengqi went missing, a hiker discovered a human skeleton near a juniper tree in Rockbridge Memorial State Park in Colombia, the very park where Joseph had proposed to Ji Mengqi. At the scene, police found Ji Mengqi's bank card. Forensic examiners later confirmed through DNA analysis and dental records that the remains were indeed hers. Ji Mengqi was found with 4 broken ribs, an injury that prosecutor Dan Knight believed indicated she had been killed in a violent assault. When investigators examined the mud-caked boots found in the couple's apartment, they discovered that the mud composition matched exactly with that of the location where her remains were found. Additionally, a crucial detail stood out. Stuck to the sole of the boots were juniper leaves, the same type of tree that grew at the site where Ji Mengqi's body was discovered. After uncovering this critical detail, prosecutor Dan Knight realized there might be a way to strengthen the case by conducting DNA tests on the juniper leaves found on Joseph's boots and comparing them with the DNA of the juniper trees at the crime scene. If the leaves were proven to be a match, it would become a key piece of forensic evidence linking Joseph directly to the site where Ji Mengqi's body had been hidden for over a year. The turning point of the case now came not from a witness or a confession, but from the trees themselves rooted in the very soil where Mengqi had silently rested all that time. After a single phone call, the Missouri Botanical Garden promptly initiated the DNA testing process. A staff member from the garden was dispatched to the crime scene and began the meticulous task of collecting samples from multiple juniper trees. He numbered each tree and climbed to the top branches to handpick leaves, ensuring that every sample came directly from the specific tree it was labeled from. This careful approach was crucial, eliminating any chance of cross-contamination and guaranteeing that the DNA results would be as accurate and reliable as possible. Finally, in August 2021, DNA from the leaves found on Joseph's boots was compared to samples collected from the crime scene. The lab results confirmed a match, undeniable evidence that Joseph had been present at the location where Mengqi's remains were discovered. Christine Edward, the plant geneticist from the Botanical Garden, recalled the moment vividly. "I think I screamed, 'We got him.' He was really there, no doubt about it." Prosecutor Dan Knight, with a stern expression, added, "He was there. Who would have thought that DNA from juniper leaves would be the key to solving this case?" The long-awaited trial finally began. On November 10, 2021, in one of the earliest sessions, the prosecution formally accused Joseph of murdering Mengqi Ji and hiding her body in Rockbridge Memorial State Park before later traveling to various forests and the banks of the Laoming River in an attempt to mislead the police. Faced with the mounting evidence, including proof that Mengqi had been buried, Joseph was officially charged with the murder. At trial, Joseph's defense attorney, Scott Rosenblum, argued that Joseph did kill his wife but claimed it was a tragic accident, not a premeditated act. Scott Rosenblum stated that on the night of October 8, 2019, Joseph gave his wife a back massage in an attempt to reconcile after prolonged arguments. However, Mengqi Ji did not want to be intimate with him and was instead texting another man. Enraged, Joseph hit Mengqi, and naturally she fought back. During the struggle, Joseph shoved his wife, causing her to fall backward, and he heard a loud thud. Mengqi then told him to leave her alone, so Joseph went out. When he returned home, she appeared to be asleep. The next morning, around 5 a.m. on October 9, 2020, Joseph woke up to the sound of his daughter crying and discovered that his wife was no longer breathing in bed. He suspected it may have been due to a head injury from hitting the stone counter. The night before, Joseph claimed that, overwhelmed by fear and panic, he chose not to call 911 and instead decided to bury his wife. When asked about the process of burying Mengqi Ji's body, Joseph admitted that he drove to Jefferson City to buy a shovel with his wife's body in the trunk and their daughter in the back seat. Once there, he spent about 30 to 45 minutes digging a grave and burying his wife, then drove his daughter back home. Tragically, little Anna, barely 1-year-old at the time, was forced to ride along to a remote location and unknowingly witness her father bury her mother. The prosecution did not believe Joseph's story. As evidence, they presented the 12 recorded arguments previously found on Meng Shiji's phone. The recordings reveal that Joseph felt trapped in the marriage and harbored deep resentment toward Meng Shi. Since her body had already decomposed, it was difficult for authorities to determine the exact cause of death. Because of this, Joseph's defense attorney felt confident enough to argue that Joseph did not intentionally kill his wife, but was instead guilty of involuntary manslaughter. However, the prosecution presented additional forensic evidence from Meng Shiji's autopsy, which showed that 4 of her ribs were broken, indicating that Joseph had used considerable force to assault her. This directly contradicted his claim that she had simply fallen and hit her head on a stone counter. Finally, prosecutor Dan Knight played the audio recordings of arguments between Joseph and Meng Shi, including one in which Joseph told her she had no brain. Knight argued that these recordings clearly revealed Joseph's motive, a calculated effort to control Meng Shi, and when he could no longer control her, he decided she had to disappear. On November 9th and 10, 2021, 2 intense days of trial proceedings took place. Prosecutor Dan Knight cross-examined Joseph for nearly 3 hours in an attempt to uncover the true cause of Meng Shiji's death. At one point, Dan asked bluntly, "You killed Meng Shi on that bed, didn't you?" Joseph firmly replied, "No." Dan followed up with, "Did you stand on Meng Shi's back and jump on her, or did you suffocate her?" Again, Joseph responded, "No," maintaining his claim that Meng Shi's death was a tragic accident. On November 11, 2021, after a 10-day trial, both sides presented their final arguments. Defense attorney Scott Rosenblum reiterated that Meng Shiji's death was nothing more than a tragic accident and argued for a manslaughter charge. Prosecutor Dan Knight, however, argued that her death had been premeditated and pushed for a first-degree murder conviction. In the end, the jury found Joseph guilty of second-degree murder, meaning they did not believe the killing was intentional. The jury then recommended a sentence of 28 years in prison. Though Dan Knight wasn't fully satisfied with the outcome, he could only accept the 28-year sentence as a symbolic form of justice, 1 year for each year Meng Shiji should have lived. In January 2022, Joseph was officially sentenced to 28 years in prison for second-degree murder. On February 2022, he pleaded guilty to the charge of child abuse. The judge handed down an additional 10-year sentence. With the combined convictions, Joseph was sentenced to a total of 38 years in prison. To this day, friends and family of Ji Mengshi continue to remember her every day. A bright, intelligent young woman with a gentle smile and a kind heart. In her short 28 years of life, she was a radiant light full of love and devotion to her family. After delving into the details of this case beyond the memory of Meng Shi's tragic passing, what haunts me the most is the image of Anna, their poor, innocent daughter. It's heartbreaking to think that she was still breastfeeding when her mother was killed. What awaits her in the years ahead is a painful reality. One day she will have to face the truth that it was her own father who took her mother's life. And when Joseph is released from prison, will Anna have the strength to confront the man who destroyed her family?